The Wire follows both the cops and the criminals of Baltimore, Maryland, with the efforts of the street gangsters to plow their trade and the police looking to stop them in their tracks. There are numerous plot threads and storylines, but one of the overarching threads over the course of the first 3 seasons is that of the Barksdale crew, led by Avon Barksdale and Stringer Bell. By the end of season 3, Stringer is dead and Avon heads back to prison. Each season of The Wire adds another layer to explore, with the 4th season, widely considered to be the best, tackling the broken education system. In doing so, we are introduced to a new group of characters, schoolchildren like Michael, Dookie, Namond, and Randy. These kids are products of the environment they have grown up in. They have their issues, but ultimately each is a good, lovable child. It's heartbreaking then to see where each child ends up. Michael, for example, entering a life of crime after he had to go to gangsters to get rid of his abusive stepfather, or Dookie, unable to find a place for himself in the streets or the legitimate world and ending up as a drug user. Only Namond has a happy ending, which says a lot about his circumstances, but that's a video for another day, so don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with future videos. There is perhaps no storyline more devastating, more heartbreaking than that of Randy Wagstaff. A bright, intelligent boy, always beaming with that beautiful smile of his. Randy always seemed like the kid most likely to make something of himself, but his path, full of potential, is riddled with inadequateness from those in positions of authority and power, and chewed out and forgotten by the system. Randy ends up as just another angry black kid, destined for a difficult future. Randy is shown to be smart and crafty, with a good mind for business, making good money in school by selling snacks to other kids. He has a natural instinct for money making. He has a business acumen. He's a hustler, and everything about him screams potential. If he is, of course, given the right tools for success, if he's molded correctly and given the warmth and love that a child needs, much like how Namond ends up receiving from Bunny. There's a lovable childlike quality in Randy, such as him thinking Chris is a zombie master. He is known for his imagination and his brightness. Randy also has a heart. He cares about people. He cares when people are hurt, and he has a conscience. But The Wire time and again shows that those who possess warmth end up coming short, and only the most vicious and sociopathic individuals like Marlo can survive and thrive in the streets. Unfortunately, possessing an innocent nature often goes hand in hand with naivety. Randy becomes involved in the murder of a local drug dealer, Lex, when another dealer, Lil Kev, pays Randy to deliver a message to Lex, which ends up becoming a trap for his death, something which Randy is troubled by. He is shown by his peers a dead body hidden in a vacant, and when he is later in trouble by the school principal and threatened with a phone call to his foster mother, Randy panics and offers his knowledge of the murder to the principal after his involvement in a bathroom incident becomes known, where he acted as a lookout to what is later claimed to be a rape. The principal puts him in touch with the police, and he is interviewed by Carver, who later turns him over to Herc, who is desperate to find his lost camera. Herc believes Randy actually saw Lex's murder and tries to get him to admit he was there, and when Herc speaks to little Kevin, he inadvertently lets Kevin know that Randy was the person he's been speaking to. Word gets back to the kingpin Marlo, and he puts it out on the street that Randy is a snitch, which is the worst possible reputation a person in that world can have. Herc also fails to get word about Randy to Bunk, who is investigating Lex's death. Immediately, Randy's world is turned upside down. He is attacked at school, and even after being promised police protection, the cops fail to stop a Molotov attack at Randy's house, which puts Randy's foster mother in hospital indefinitely. Carver tries his hardest to find Randy a new foster home, even making a last-ditch effort to foster him himself to no avail. And thus, Randy ends up back at a group home, which was earlier established to be one of his biggest fears. Even there, he is unable to escape his reputation as a snitch and gets into fights with older, hostile care kids. Randy was done dirty by the system, and he's already gone through so much trauma and psychological and physical abuse. When Bunk speaks to Randy in Season 5 about Lex's murder, Randy is completely transformed. You can see that there is so much anger in this adolescent, so much fury at the system, at the cops, at the world. He calls out Bunk and walks away, and loudly professes that the cop needs to be taken away before he becomes violent, most likely to ensure nobody thinks he's snitching again. The once young, lovable Randy then pushes a younger kid out of the way as he storms upstairs, and we never see him again. Randy's is one of the most tragic storylines of the entire show, and it appears he will just disappear into a crowd of junkies and gangbangers once he turns 18 and is out on the street by himself. Maybe he'll end up as just another murder statistic. He was an entrepreneur that tried to be a good kid, and it was that goodness that got him to a position to be bullied by people in positions of authority, because he was afraid of getting into trouble and was easily tricked and threatened into becoming a snitch, then left to the abuse of his peers. The difference in Randy in season 5 is so stark and alarming. No doubt he's gone through a lot since we last saw him. Nobody who'll come across Randy, this young man fueled by hatred, will know that this was once a happy young little boy. No one will give him that benefit of the doubt. So Randy's story ends in tragedy. But in this video I wanted to propose a few alternative paths that could be awaiting Randy, rather than him simply being a hardened guy who was let down by all the adults around him. Many fans of The Wire are already aware of the fact that Randy is the son of Cheese, the East Side gangster who is the nephew of Proposition Joe. Cheese often pops up in The Wire and is most notable for betraying his uncle and giving his location away to Marlo, who kills him. Boy was always a disappointment, but fans cheer when Slim Charles puts a bullet in Cheese's head for Joe. Randy and Cheese, whose real name is Melvin, both share the same surname, Wagstaff. That is pretty much the only link between the two, yet the idea that Randy is Cheese's son was confirmed by The Wire creator David Simon. In fact, Simon said that this connection would have been confirmed in season 5 of the show, but the series was cut short to 10 episodes and there wasn't enough time to squeeze in a small subplot regarding Cheese and Randy. It adds an extra layer of tragedy to Randy's story, what with him having a father who was alive and well, but who was a deadbeat who took no care in the well-being of his child, not even to pay for a school uniform. And that's even assuming that Cheese is aware of Randy's existence. Chances are neither is aware the other is out there somewhere. They could have easily crossed paths on the street several times without knowing. Regardless, if things were a little different, Randy could be living with his dad instead of being sent to the home. Although, who knows, maybe things would be even worse for Randy if he lived with Cheese. We've no idea what this burdensome individual would be like as a father. But, and hear me out here, could it be possible that there's a secret happy ending for Randy hidden in The Wire through Randy's connection with his father? As it turns out the two are related, that means Randy and Proposition Joe are related, as the latter is Randy's granduncle. Now, as we know, Cheese betrays Joe and essentially takes what he has. This is pretty much confirmed when Cheese is able to put up $900 for the co-op to buy the Connect from Marlo, with the other gangsters astounded that he's able to come up with such cash. Also, when Cheese is in jail, Levy tells Marlo that Cheese will be getting out on a $300k bond, and when Marlo asks where he's getting that kind of money, Levy says that Cheese is putting his uncle's house as collateral. So this implies that not only did Cheese take the cash that Joe had, his deed to his house, among other things, would have officially been transferred to Cheese. And when Cheese dies, wouldn't they go to Cheese's next of kin, which in this case is Randy? So imagine, if you will, Randy, bruised and broken, lying on his bed in the home, gets a knock on the door from some white dudes in suits, and the day ends with him getting the keys to Prop Joe's estate through his inheritance. And thus, Randy goes from having one of the most tragic stories in The Wire to one of the luckiest. I have no problem with Randy's storyline ending the way it did. It touched me, it's effectively heartbreaking, and it makes you think about all the young men who get lost down such a spiral as he did. But there is an element where you do wonder if Randy actually had a good ending. But how plausible is it? It relies on Cheese legally having the rights to Joe's property, which seems to be the case from what we know, but does Cheese seem the type to make a will or have a living testament? Even if he did, would the authorities care enough to track down Cheese's estranged son to give him his rights? Would they even be able to? Would they even know Randy was Cheese's kid? So many questions, and perhaps someone with knowledge on American inheritance laws might be able to provide a better answer than this than I. But there's a hopeful glimmer that Randy actually gets a happy ending. Just before I move on to my next point, there's something I want to mention. It might not be what the showrunners were going for, but I think there might actually be a possibility that Randy wasn't in fact another angry black kid in season 5 who had lost his way and was now beyond hope. Rather, his demeanor with Bunk was a performance, as was him pushing the kid out of the way. It's a front, because he knows this tough kind of behavior is what's necessary to survive. That sweet little kid is still there, but it's covered by this hardened exterior. My only real evidence for this is the look that Randy gives Bunk when he walks back up the stairs. A momentary glance. It says so much. It's almost as if he's communicating that this isn't the real him, that he wants to be out of this hellhole, but at the same time doesn't trust the police. He knows he's on his own, so won't open himself up to that kind of vulnerability again. He puts on the act to let Bunk know he's never going to help the police again, gives him one last look full of hidden hurt and betrayal, and Bunk understands, so leaves him be. Anyway, since we're hypothesizing, imagine if Randy did end up owning Joe's home, and he came across Joe's paperwork or a notebook of some sort, a contact list of people in the game. Putting aside why Joe would be taking notes on a criminal fucking conspiracy, Randy, with access to this information and given his intelligence, could make something of himself with this and, dare I say it, become the next Proposition Joe? We're in fan fiction territory here by this point, but part of what The Wire shows us is the cycles of Baltimore and how nothing ultimately changes. The game is the game, only the players change. Michael becomes Omar, Dookie becomes Bubbles, and many fans feel, what with his abilities and the fact that he'll soon be out in the streets, that Randy will become the next Joe. I don't think he's necessarily a lock-on for Joe in the same way Michael is for Omar, but I can definitely see the argument. They both have a knack for business, and interestingly, there is a short prequel to The Wire available online showing Prop Joe in his school days, where he sells test answers to other kids, and when he's shorted and threatened by another child, he goes to a teacher and asks for money in exchange of letting her know who is cheating. Essentially, like Randy, he snitches. So there's that connection. Plus, Randy wants to have his own store, something which Joe actually does have, which could be seen by some as foreshadowing for events after The Wire's run. However, there are many differences between Randy and Joe. Joe seems to have been raised with love, and he speaks about his grandfather with admiration. That trait defines him, that love for family. In fact, it's actually what caused his death. This is very different to Randy, who we can assume doesn't even know who his parents are, and had hatred for many who are older than him. I actually think if Randy was going to become someone we've already seen, there are 3 other options worth considering. The first is Officer Walker, who we know is an asshole cop with seemingly no redeemable qualities and who abuses children. What could possibly have happened to this man that he is so evil and gleeful in his evil deeds? Could it be that he was once like Randy, full of life and happiness, but the system sucked that out of him? And let's say Randy ended up becoming a cop rather than a corner boy, given his reputation for snitching would make it harder to be a gangster. He could then release all of his anger after a lifetime of bullying by bullying the kind of people who made his life hell. Another option, I think, is Stringer Bell. Stringer always toed that line between legitimate business know-how and the knowledge of the streets. Someone born on the streets of Baltimore but who could have become something more and is actively trying to do so. Is it possible for someone like Randy to become someone like Stringer? I think so. The final option is Marlo Stanfield. Now hear me out. Randy as a youth had charisma and personality, 2 traits needed for leadership. He loses the warmth in his heart, which is replaced by a cold nature, similar to how the heartless Marlo ends up. Could it be that the writers used Randy to come up with a backstory for Marlo, and how he was betrayed by others, and how that made him a hardened individual, and how society made him into this sociopathic force of nature. The Wire establishes that only vicious individuals like Marlo can thrive on the streets these days, but maybe it wasn't a case of someone who just happened to have this personality rising to the top, but this characteristic being cultivated and molded in this man because of the circumstances he grew up in. Marlo doesn't trust anybody, not Stringer, not Joe. He cannot be trusted himself as he's only out for himself, just like Randy in season 5. Randy has no family, nothing to lose, like Marlo, and what destroyed Randy was having the reputation of a snitch. If he managed to shave off that rep in the streets and make something of himself, it makes sense that he'd always be insecure about it and would ensure no one would call him out on it in the future. And similarly, the only time Marlo loses his cool in The Wire is when he's called out by Omar, with the "my name is my name" monologue, with Omar calling him out as a punk. All the insecure Marlo cares about is his carefully cultivated reputation, but maybe that's because in a past life he had a very different reputation. And finally, when Randy is beaten up outside his school, if I remember correctly, one of the kids leaves a scar, and Marlo of course also has a scar. So what do you think happened to Randy after the show ended? What do you think of these theories that I've proposed? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed my analysis, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.